Welcome to the Craig and Greg Show, presented by Maximize Leadership. Now, here are Craig Owens and Greg Harris.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Craig and Greg Show. I'm Craig. This is Greg. We are coming up on Memorial Day. It's a very special day, and it is a day for remembering, first of all, remembering some great people. Never forget that we live among giants, and that's true. And many of them have given, as the key phrase is, the last full measure of devotion, and it's good for us to remember them. But, you know, I think that we need to remember the living as well, and especially as leaders. I think leaders that remember things about the people around them really set themselves apart.
I think your dad was pretty dapper. You know, he had a lot of nice outfits and jackets and kerchiefs and like well appointed. And there's something that happens when you see a person like your dad walk in, you're like, oh, he put that together well. You know, it's the details, right? He paid attention to the details, and he looks good. He acts good. He acts professional. I think as leaders, if we got rid of the wardrobe and said, you know, how do we remember? What are the details? I happened to catch up with a guy just recently, Craig, and when I said, hey, did your mom continue playing pickleball? I mean, he stopped dead in his tracks. I told you that 3 years ago. I said, well, I'm just asking. I haven't asked about your mom in a while. So did you pick up pickleball? Yeah, she's now a 3.4, a 3.5 player. Well, good for her. I still can't believe you remember that. And what I saw was a person who was like, when I told you something, you paid attention. Mm-hmm. You've seen that as not only just a leader, but a pastor, a business owner. How does the paying attention happen? Because if it's not natural, sometimes we can walk through life with blinders on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that a lot of times, I think we are too focused on what we're going to say next, and we're not really listening to what the person is saying to us.
Yeah.
And so then you can't really pay attention to those details or retain them, lock them in there, because you're just, Brian Regan, the comedian Brian Regan's got a really funny clip. You can look this up. He talks about the me monster. Me? Me. And he talks about these people that all they're doing is just watching for the other person's mouth to stop moving so they can just go, yeah, but me too. Me. See, you and then me and then
got a
me.
better story.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's unfortunately a lot of people are fascinated with themselves and they want to tell their story and they're not listening to what the other person's story is.
All right, leaders, here's a confession. Be careful of paying attention and remembering people and it's important to them, because it can fall into maybe the trap of manipulation. Sure. I remember you. Let me bring it up again. I love to see the person get a little puffy when I say, so your mom's still playing pickleball? How's she doing? Well, and then 3 minutes later, you're like, that's awesome. I'm glad I asked.
Yeah.
I also think it's potentially the secret sauce to a leader who doesn't have to be the gavel holder, slamming it on the lectern. It isn't the person who says, here's a pink slip, don't do anything bad. The potential for us to remember is we make them feel so important.
Yes. Yeah.
So is there someone in your life that you'd say he modeled that, and then maybe another example for you, I modeled it, and you won't believe what a breath of fresh air it was for him or her?
Well, I'll tell you a time that I modeled it and felt somewhat vindicated in doing it. It was not my intention, but I was working with an organization for a while, and one of the big muckety mucks from the other side of the state came over. He just showed up unannounced. So he calls me at 8:00 in the morning. What are you doing today? Well, I'm going to meet this prospect, and he said, oh, well, pick me up. I'm at such and such, and I'm like, you're in West Michigan. Yeah, I came over. I'm going to hang out with you today. I'm going to shadow you today. I want to see what's going on. I'm like, fine. So I picked him up and I went to Big B and I met this prospect there. We sat down and I started asking him about his fishing trip with his grandsons. And he starts telling me all about it, and he pulls out his phone. He shows me the pictures. Now, I don't fish. I don't really know anything about fishing. But I tried to ask some, somewhat intelligent follow-up questions. We probably were there for about 45 minutes. I just talked to him kind of business talk, maybe the last 2 or 3 minutes as we were standing up, getting ready to walk out the door. Walked out the door, this guy that had come to shadow me, he's sitting still in the booth. And he's all despondent. And I came back over and I'm like, hey, if you're going with me, I got another meeting. And he says, well, sit down for a second. What did we just do here? This was a complete waste of time. I said, what are you talking about? Well, I thought you were meeting with him to talk about business. Well, we did. For 30 seconds. And I said, he just came back from a fishing trip with his grandsons. It's the first time that he has done this without their dad. It was just grandpa and grandsons. I knew how excited that he was going to be about this. And did you see how much he wanted to talk about it? Why would I interrupt that? And this other guy was just all upset with me for wasting time, according to him. So I took great satisfaction in about 2 weeks later when I sent over a big fat contract that this guy signed with us. And I said, remember that waste of time? Here's the contract that came from this thing. So, it's not that hard.
It's not okay, but why is it hard? Is it just that it's us? We're human. We get in the way. To me, I had a talk with a young person who was kind of struggling through some, life stuff, and I said, there's 2 people in the world. They're like, there's 8 billion. No, there's 2 people. One that takes and one that gives. Mm-hmm. Be careful who you hang around and make sure they don't change you to a taker.
Right.
And to me, someone who's paying attention, listening, remembering. So I'm going to give you a little cheat. So as I kind of built my career, I actually wrote things down in their context, just for me. Yep. Bill just, his one son graduated going to the Navy. So, when he goes to college, I'm like, so the Army-Navy game, you going to watch it? Did you remember? Well, I did. As time went on, though, Craig, I got to remember naturally.
Sure.
Not a note card.
Well, it's like a muscle that you're using, so it...
Yes, but it's hard because if we get in the way, we're takers.
Yes.
So I think that's one of our leadership takeaways here, our lessons is, if we're going to be takers, we're not going to learn enough about them because we want to talk about ourselves or a product or service.
Right.
I love when someone just like this, the grandpa. Oh, thanks for asking. Oh, here's a picture. Oh, and then largemouth bass. And the nighttime cabin talks.
Right.
He is talking about what is so important to him.
Absolutely.
Why would we give 2 poops about paper selling or selling a car or selling a house? It's like, relax.
Yes.
So what would be a lesson for us as leaders regarding kind of getting out of the way and becoming more of an asker, a giver in this?
Well, I love being the person that when I walk into the room, I don't want to walk in the room and go, here I am. Let me start passing out all of these things that talk about me. Yeah. I want to walk in the room and say, hey, there's somebody that I can get to know. Mm-hmm. And if you just go and you're focused on that person, it'll come back around. Right. Now, if they're a complete narcissist, let's talk about myself some more. You're probably going to move on from that person. It's probably not somebody you're going to do business with or have on your team. I'm
not a big Disney fan, as you know. You probably aren't either. We won't tell everybody that. But Beauty and the Beast, there's a character called Gaston.
Yes.
And he is the ultimate Disney narcissist, right?
Yes.
All right. So I did keep notes a little bit. So if I met someone, I would put, Dave Smith was his real name, Dave Gaston Smith.
Yes.
That told me everything about the guy. Like, I want to know what to remember. Like, okay, don't get him talking about himself, or we won't have the meeting. But I do think it's a challenge. The unfortunate thing for us as humans is if they don't give us the feedback, right?
Right.
But we're really digging our well.
Yes.
As a leader,
yes.
We're digging our well with them.
Yep.
Right?
Well, and it when you do that consistently, you can't help but reap the results of that. And so, listen, this is our maybe we should get this on our Craig and Greg shirts or something, because we talk about this so much. As a leader, you've got to be out walking around among people and get to know them and let them get to know you.
Yeah.
Not come and talk about yourself, but say, hey, I noticed that you got a tan, so you must have had a lot of sun, when you were going on your vacation. Just those little things.
Before we get started, all right, so brag about your trip. You look too good. And they're like, well, let me tell you, I took my kids, and we haven't been together as a whole family a long time, and I just splurged, and it was so good, and I regret not doing it the last 5 years.
Yep.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yep.
But to me, you have to kind of get out of yourself as a leader,
yes,
and then kind of find them. So I bought my first big boy suit when I shopped at Back Racks, and Jerry Bishop was my salesperson, and he was well appointed, had all the details.
That's true.
Right?
He still is.
Still does, yeah. Shout out to you, Jerry Bishop.
Absolutely.
Anyway, so
Bishop.
Yeah, Bishop. He sold me a couple items, and I said, "Ooh, this is coming together really nice." He texts, at that point, Nextel is all we had back then, Nextel. He Nextelled me, goes, any compliments on that suit? Hi, Jerry, you have a lot of customers, but you remembered to ask me about my suit.
Yep.
It just endeared me even more to that kind of a person.
Yes.
Like, okay, wow, he didn't call me to say, hey, I got more suits in. He actually said, any compliments on the suit we put together.
Well, you know what? So listen, you mentioned my dad earlier.
Right.
My dad had a guy that he went to buy a suit from, and he did the exact same thing.
Oh.
And this guy would follow up with him, like, how did that, I know you were going to, this meeting. How did it go? But he would start kind of setting things aside. Next time my dad came in, he'd say, remember that brown suit and it had the little blue in there? We had a shirt that came in. Let me show it to you. This would go great with that. He just kept that going. Well, so this was when my dad was first starting off in business. He was kind of struggling, so he didn't go and get a lot of suits. This guy still treated him that way. And then down the road, when my dad actually went to work for a company where they said, we expect all of our employees to dress at this level, and so we're going to give you a lot of money specifically to spend on clothes.
Wow.
And he went back to the same guy and said, now I got a lot of money to spend here. But just because the guy remembered the little details along the way, it paid huge results for him down the road.
You know a little bit about my background in sports. So I remember after a ball game, on the field, fans and family can come down. Well, a guy comes up and he goes, hey, can I get a picture with you and my son? Oh, yeah, where is he? I'm thinking, where is he? And, oh, wow, he's 4 years old. I'm going to have to get on my knees. So I put on one knee on the field, took a picture with him. I saw him about 10 years later, the dad. Hey, what's Todd up to? You'd have thought I opened up Fort Knox for him. Right. Todd's great. Really impressive that you remember my kid. Oh, well, you're welcome. He was nice young man. So how is he now as a teenager? Is he in high school? What's he doing? Right. It's like, all right. So hey, if you're interested, I'm in.
Right.
And I didn't do it for that because he said, hey, would you come to an event that I'm putting on? Sure. So I was thinking, okay, maybe 100 people. I'll sit in the back and support it. He goes, hey, when you get in, just tell Mary at the desk that you're at my table. Of what? Oh, my guest. Buddy, there's 20 tables here. I can sit anywhere. I want you up front. All right. Who was there? His 14-year-old son sat right next to me. And I had an hour of just delightful conversation with a young man who was a sponge. But I wasn't a tool to him on the field. And he had just this, I want to be like my dad and you.
Yep.
Okay, so as leaders, how cool is it to say, I'm paying attention to you.
Yep.
I know what's important to you. Whether you're in sales or you're a pastor, it's so critical to remember people.
Yes.
And I think, for you as a leader in a church, or currently, you see people and they're like, hey, thanks for buying my coffee at the local Speedway. I know you did it. Well, that's okay. I know you were behind me at the gas station. That was very nice of you. They even recognized me. We have such ability to move people,
Yep.
make them better.
Yep.
And I do think that whole paying attention, not about image, although I think, your dad had a beautiful brand, he was sharp looking.
Yep.
It wasn't an image like, I can't wear jeans.
No.
I can't wear a hat backwards. No, it's how you treat people.
Yep.
And I don't know who gets credit for these lines, but I wish to treat the janitor the same as the CEO. And I remember Rich DeVos did a chapel service for one of my schools, and he came in and he goes, who's more of a success? The guy that inherited a big company, or the person who cleans your hotel room before you have a big meeting? I was a teenager. I'm like, well, of course nope. No, it's a trick question. He's tricking me. And it just told me a lot about treating people well. I love going to a restaurant. You do the same thing with me. We say hi to people. What's your name? Thank you, Mary, for coming up and taking care of us. Is there anything we can talk about or pray about, whatever? We want to include them in our world.
Yep.
And they feel so much better than I'm just doing a job.
John Maxwell wrote a book about people principles, about interacting with people.
Yeah.
And one of the ones he said is to remember this, that the entire world, with one minor exception, is made up of other people. And there's a lot of people, when you say that, you're like, well, yeah. But there's a lot of people that, hey, I think forget that. And they think everything should revolve around me. I should be, well, the whole world is made up of other people. And I think you'll be a lot more, you'll enjoy the journey. You'll be a lot more successful and impactful as a leader if you get out of your own way and you start serving other people. And one of the ways you can serve them, remember their name, remember some details about them, and then bring those details back up later on.
Shepherd leadership. That's really what this is about. The strong leader is with the person. So what did you do for me today? Yeah. The shepherd leader is, hey, let's not talk about, your productivity today. I want to ask about, did your wife, did her outpatient surgery go okay? Don't tell me the details, blah, blah, blah. How do you remember that? We have 50 employees or 500 employees. Right. I remember my grandparents talking about driving around. Let's take a drive.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's so valuable.
Is that in this book?
It could be. But my challenge about driving around is you're driving around to observe.
Right.
See things.
Right.
Oh, there's Joe. Let's stop in. It's about the other person. And I think driving around, walking around as leaders, it's really the goal of we're paying attention. I'm not going to talk too bad about kids today, but like my youngest has got a permit. And so she's driving and says, so what road is this? I don't know. And I got to think, so for the last 15 years, you've either had, a drawing book, maybe a toy in your back seat, or potentially a phone now, and your head's down. We just drove 15 minutes and you have no idea what route I took. And they miss so much. And I think keep your eyes open and recall those valuable data, stats, stories. It's so good.
Well, you share this quote that you found from John Ash. Short quote, absolutely nails it.
Great leaders make others feel important.
Yep.
And I think that's the remembering part. Yep. Even though we talk about Memorial Day and those that have passed and served or those that still serve, remembering them, like I happen to call an aunt who's in her 90s, and I says, hey, just thought about you. I mean, you'd have thought I gave her free bread. It's like, oh, what'd you think of me for? That's so nice of you. Well, I really couldn't tell her why. I mean, I was like, your name came up. I think that random stuff is so fun versus, oh, you did something for me, I should give you a compliment. Right. It's the surprises, and you've done that through your career. Is hey, just a little love gift, man. Just as a note, yep. Or a little encouragement or follow up. I think that's the one thing. I do speak for a living, and I enjoy it. And I give them little tidbits about like leadership, sales, business things where you can really get ahead of the crowd. Like you stand out. You're not part of, the normal, typical, you're not going to follow up. So sometimes I'll be like, all right, before we get started, give me one thing I can't research, but I need to know about you. And they'll go personal.
Yeah.
It won't be business.
Right.
So there's a little steal for you. You can take that one. Yeah.
Yep.
But I think the point for us when remembering details, you have to ask.
Right.
And you have to listen.
Yes.
And log it, right?
Yep.
Log it away.
Yep.
How do you do that?
I do. I'm very similar to what you said. I used to, have like contacts in my computer, and I would jot down some notes, and then after a while, I think you do develop that memory in your muscle, that or muscle memory, kind of in your mind, where we can just start saying, oh yeah, I just natural to remember the details now.
I think originally when I was maybe practicing it or saw it mentored by one of my coaches or mentors. By the way, it's a Traeger. Check out our coaching page. I was surprised to watch from the outside. You may be talking to a neighbor. Maybe it was my grandpa. Use it from my book. How did you remember that his dad died? Well, we were at the coffee shop. Oh, you were listening.
Yeah.
Right?
And paying attention. Right.
And you logged it in. And when I do see John, I'm going to bring up his father, what a role model he was in the community.
Yep.
And I saw as a kid, like, wow, that those words are oxygen, or another analogy. What do you got?
Well, I like that. Oxygen. I mean, it's such encouragement to somebody that, wow, there's people that really are paying attention to me. And even if you're the only one, it could be the lifeline that they need.
Yeah. And unfortunately, everybody thinks, this is so valuable.
Right.
It's the connection to the world. I don't really believe it is.
Right. It can be a part of.
Sure.
But it shouldn't be like your only.
Yeah. I think my challenge, even for me, is you walk by so many people or drive by or pass so many people in a day, we have no idea. Mm-hmm. I really wish that, we could get that little thought bubble, on top of you, like, okay, is it, ooh, that's red. So Craig's not doing good. I'm going to ask, hey, let's talk. How can I help your day? And blue, he's awesome today. I'm going to compliment on his awesome. I wish we had that little cheat. Sometimes we have to risk jumping in.
Yeah, I think being around people enough, you start noticing those kind of things.
Yeah. Is there anything that you'd say summary-wise from remembering the details or making people feel important?
I guess I'd go back to just like we have a Thanksgiving Day.
Oh, yeah.
You don't want to be thankful just on that one day. We have a Memorial Day. We don't want to just remember the sacrifices of people on that day. Mm-hmm. Or we have a birthday. We don't want to just celebrate that person on that day. So if we can just remember that every day is a special day, and you may have had in your life, or maybe somebody who lost somebody unexpectedly. It was a car accident. It was some kind of tragedy, and you never expected that your last interaction with them was their last interaction. And so we need to treat every day like it's a precious day, and every person that we meet like they are as they are, an invaluable masterpiece. So get to know them. And when you do, I love that idea of it being you're very well appointed. Regardless of whether you're wearing a suit or jeans and a t-shirt.
Or t-shirt, there you go.
Yeah, you look good to them. You look well appointed when you remember those details. It will make your leadership set apart. Mm-hmm. And we want to help you, resource you in other ways. So if you've got any questions on what we talked about today, leave us a comment below. Reach out to us on X or in other places. You can go on to maximizeleadership.com. You can leave comments there or ask questions and say, hey, how about if you guys talk about this kind of a topic or cover this sort of thing? We'd love to be able to do that and resource you. We want to see you get better in your leadership because you're going to make a difference in all the other people around you. So stay tuned. There's lots more great content coming up real soon.
Get in touch with Craig and Greg through Twitter at Maximize Podcast or at MaximizeLeadership.com. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any episodes of The Craig and Greg Show.